Conscious Boss, and I am so pumped to be with you today and share such an epic guest. I have Phil Pallen all the way from LA here with us in New Zealand, and we are chatting about all things branding today. So I am just going to rip right into it, and I want to get Phil to talk to us a little bit about, we have, as we just touched on, 3 seconds to grab the attention of our audience. And so touch on that a little bit, and also around, what you do as a global brand strategist.
Yeah, I think nowadays we have to think about ourselves in two versions. There's the in-person experience that if we are lucky enough to have the privilege of sitting face-to-face in real life, I get content from you. I get to also consume your personality, which is inherent with how you deliver that content. So it's your facial expressions, your reception to the things that I say. All of those things, if we're in person together, I get to consume. But if we're not, then we have to recreate the in-person experience on the web. And to stay true to who we are in real life. And on the web, it's not about building something we're not. It's about truly achieving consistency so that people on the web get a sense of who you are in real life. So as a brand strategist, I'm helping people do 3 things: positioning their brands, building something to show for it, and then promoting it effectively in a way that people are going to care. I think content has become an unlimited resource on the web. Everyone is creating content, right? Blogs, podcasts, tweets. Everyone's creating content, which a lot of times is noise if it's focused on me. Really, the value is in what's in it for you, right? Why should I spend the most important currency that exists now, time, my time, on you instead of projecting it somewhere else? So it's thinking through all of that and being able to do it quick, because attention spans are now shorter than ever, mine included.
So you touched on there as well about positioning, building, and promoting your brand. Can you expand a little bit on that and sort of the stages that we have to go through in thinking about our brand?
Yeah, I have a very simple formula for positioning your brand. Something you love, something that if people are fortunate enough to have a job like ours, where we actually get to do what we love to do every single day, it doesn't feel like a job. That's why I'm so passionate about it. So it feels like a hobby, but I get to do this every day. Yeah. It's amazing. I like to help people arrive at what their version of that is. So not everyone will know the answer to the question, what's your brand? But everyone knows the answer to this question. What is something you would do with your time if you won the lottery today? What would you do tomorrow? I've not met anyone in any corner of the world, and I travel lots of corners in the world. I've not met anyone that can't answer that question. Some people don't know their brand, but everyone knows the answer to the question, what would you do with your time if you won the lottery, right? If money was no object, no constraint, what would you do with your time? And the idea is tap into your passions. What is it you truly love to do? Something that wouldn't feel like a job, that you'd become so consumed, so passionate about because it's what you love, paired with something others need. That first bit on its own is not a business. It's a hobby. It's something you love. But it becomes a business when you pair it with something others need, and that needs to be based on research. That's the formula for effectively positioning your brand, so that then, and only then, do you move into building something to show for it. Once we've build something we're really proud of, and that's a lot of the work I'm doing: brand identity, photography, website, social profiles. Once we've built something really great to show for it, then, and only then, do we take it to the market and promote it. Sticker for sale sign out front. And then make sure what you've created based on need gets in front of the right faces.
So do you find that often you'll have clients that want to enter into the promote stage before they go into actually really building a solid brand?
All the time. People are so quick to jump to, I need to promote this project. I'm launching a book and I need to sell this idea. And I'm often the bearer of truth. Sometimes the truth is bad news. And I'm saying, actually, no one cares about what you've created. And I can't sell what you've created. I don't feel good about this. Therefore, I won't take you on as a client. A lot of times I'm saying, we need to revisit the position and the build of what we've, what we've created, what we're showing for this idea. We need to slightly pivot, restage, renovate, whatever word you want to use. We need to move some stuff around and make some decisions to make this better so that people will pay attention. So all the time, people are so quick to sell. And in fact, I actually consistently won't take on projects that are just a sale. If people are not open to my feedback to make it better in terms of positioning and build, then it's not the project for me. I know the power of positioning and building things, even if it's a very slight pivot. It could be the smallest little thing. And clients go, oh yeah, true, that will help when we take it to market. A lot of times they're so focused on what they want and their goals that no one else really cares. And without them on board, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so you speak there as well about providing value. How can businesses or brands really get into the minds of the consumer to figure out how to add value to their audience?
You have to constantly think what makes you different, right? What makes you unique? What makes you different? And how do you turn that into value for the other person? So we see too often when people fail, they're too focused on me. What is in it for me? This is the me show. And it's not about me, it's about the other person. Every good business satisfies a need. Every good business, in terms of discovering value, should be positioned in the way of someone going in for a job interview. When you go in for a job interview, let's say we're doing that right now. If I sit down and say, this is a great job for me because it aligns with what I want to achieve. I want to, further myself in this position so that I can go on and get a better job later on. The person who's interviewing you, who's actually giving you that, who's in control of that opportunity, could not care less about what you want to achieve. They care what you want to achieve in a way that benefits them. If I can position you to make your dreams come true, it means that you're going to perform better for me and I'm going to make more money from you. So a job is no different than a business. If someone gives you a job, they're saying, okay, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars and I expect a return on that. If I don't get a return on that in some way, shape, or form, sometimes it's not as obvious, say sales versus HR. If you get hired in an HR position, you're there to make sure everyone else is happy so that they're producing and earning money, right? So it's a transaction. Don't think it's anything more than that. This is not about you, it's about them. And if you can really, truly make that pivot in terms of a mindset, then that can become very powerful in terms of offering value in a lot of different ways to help you grow.
So how did you get into what you do now, having your business, working, with brands? What led you to where you are now?
I never intended to be an entrepreneur. I came from a family that was like, go to school and then find a job that has security and a salary. And that's what I thought I was supposed to do, was to get a job that someone would pay me and I'd get paid every 2 weeks, and that was that, stability. And I don't think I would have ever actually intentionally made the decision to go off and freelance to start or to do something that wasn't secure. And I'm so happy that happened. Long story short, I was in a competition 3 months before I was set to graduate my master's. I went to school in the US, originally from Canada. And I was in a competition to become Charlie Sheen's social media intern at the peak of his craziness in the media. And so I made it from 90,000 people to the top 50. And at the same time, had an opportunity to intern for Ryan Seacrest, which was my dream, and got fired from that job because I connected them both in the media. 1 week before I was set to start my internship with Ryan Seacrest, the VP called me and was like, what have you done? Why is Ryan popping up in all these articles, like squeaky clean family brand, popping up in all these articles with Charlie Sheen, strippers and cocaine? And it was just me, little old me from a small town in Canada that was moving to California in a week, and I was fired. So I literally had nothing. I had no friends, I had no job, no internship. Even though I built a social media campaign around this, did over 100 TV, radio, print interviews. Without even realizing it, built my own first case study on how to garner interest, how to build a profile, how to make people care about what you're doing. From the minute I entered that competition, I decided this can't be about me. This needs to be a shared experience where people feel like they are in it. They are living vicariously through me to have a piece of this. That was truly the way that I created content from start to finish in that competition. Because if it was just about me, if I was going to be one of those annoying people on social media that says, "Ooh, I'm in this contest. You can vote for me 10 times a day." No one's going to. Like, I got better things to do, even if it includes taking a nap. I'm not going to vote 10 times for you. You need to make people care about what you're doing. And so I figured out how to do that. And that was a good kind of first, exercise before entering the real world. And then I had clients that said, do you have any friends that can do what you just did for yourself to build your profile and essentially create something successful on social media? And I was like, actually, I'm in the market. You can hire me.
Yeah.
And that's how I got my first few clients. And I'm so thankful that I started from the beginning doing my own thing. I've never worked for an agency. I've never worked for anyone else.
I love that. There's a couple of things I want to ask on that. Firstly, because again, when we're really close to our business, sometimes it can be hard to decide or figure out how we can actually make people care about our mission or like create that value for our audience. Do you have any kind of tips as to how you help clients figure that out so that they can use that in their branding and their messaging?
Well, I call myself a brand strategist, but I am much more than just a brand strategist. Or what, let's dissect that. What does that title even mean? I started calling myself that because I saw someone else with that job title on LinkedIn. And then I thought, well, I'm doing whatever I want to do, so I'm going to call myself a brand strategist. But really, I mean, within that role, I'm also therapist. I'm coach. I am accountability partner, which is you tell me your idea, and I say, okay, let's actually follow through on that. Because if you're having that dialogue with yourself, you'd be amazed at the number of excuses that come up, right? It's all the reasons you can't go to the gym. It's all the reasons you can't stick to a healthy diet, or all the reasons that, other things that are more important come into play. You need someone to help you stay accountable. So a lot of times I play that role. A lot of times I'm what's a good analogy? I don't know. I don't want to say like a parent, because sometimes your parent is your biggest fan, but a lot of times, my bio on Twitter, the second sentence on my bio says, if your baby's ugly, it's my job to tell you. So I also play that role where people come to me for honesty and they want, and it's not based on my taste. This isn't about my taste. If something isn't positioned properly, if someone has an ugly baby, I'll constructively provide a solution. So I'm not dramatic in that sense, where I'm not that Hollywood, where I go, that's awful, that's ugly, fix it. I'd say, well, this could be better, and here's what we can do by improving, for example, your visual brand, right? If your visuals are so strong and so consistent, then you're putting across the image that you're a big player in the field. You might not be, but if your brand tells me otherwise, you'd be shocked at what people believe. You'd be shocked at what kind of first impression you can give others in the realm of what's completely within your control, right? And so that's a lot of the work that I'm doing. As a brand strategist, it's kind of playing all those different roles, but I'd say even just having that person that you trust, a lot of times you feel like you don't have anyone that you can talk to, or people that get it. And that's why, even if it's someone you're paying or not, I mean, make friends with people that are also in your business. You can have really honest conversations.
So when we're starting out, what do we or brands really need to think about as the most important thing in building their brand, at that earliest stage?
You're always going to be your own worst critic. So actually, I think the design of your brand is great. You don't, because it's your own brand. And I'd say the same thing about mine. My website drives me mental, but I have other people that love it. And I'm constantly, looking to make it better. And so that can be a good thing. It can also be an unnecessary distraction, right? So I would say, well, how would I answer this question? There's a lot of different ways. What are the musts? I would say, and I'm known for this answer because it's not the norm. I think the number one area that people slack with their branding is photography. So because online we're crafting a first impression, the effort that you put into getting dressed in the morning, putting makeup on, creating that first impression. How are you going to start a conversation when you meet someone at a coffee shop or you meet someone for the first time? What gestures do you use? What are you going to say? What are you going to look up before you meet that person so that you can have a conversation and know that, give them the first impression that you care about them? All of these things that go into that first impression that's crafted in real life they're just as important online. So it's crazy to me that people will go and spend hundreds, sometimes thousands of dollars on an outfit. But then they get a deal, or they have a friend who takes their profile photo on LinkedIn. It's insane. People, instead of spending money on clothes or unnecessary distractions, should really be spending that on their own photography. Hire, not a headshot photographer unless you're an actor. I'd say lifestyle photography. Hire a wedding photographer. People that can work well under pressure and consistently make things beautiful. Go on Instagram in your town and start to look at the best Instagrammers in your town. Maybe it's a recent grad. You don't have to spend a ton of money on a photographer, but you should. People will say, I have a limited budget. Where should I allocate my money? Photography, more than your brand identity. And usually it's the first step before you develop your website, because ask any website developer or designer, and they are limited by the resources that you provide them, and that's photography. And photography often is the springboard for inspiration and a lot of other elements for your branding. For example, it can be the color of the background of one of your shots that inspires the brand identity. Photography, it's like it is as strong as how you look in real life. It is that split decision where people decide if you're legitimate or not. And so if your photos are great, then it puts across the image that you take yourself seriously in a good way, and that you should as well. And so if it looks amateur, then I think twice before paying for whatever you're offering, product or service.
I love that, and I think it's a part of a bigger conversation too, in the sense of like people spending or investing. You know, so many people will spend, like, they'll say, I don't have money to hire a team, or I don't have money to, get photography or redo my website or get one. But exactly, there's people that are taking this random trip, or they're, buying that $1,000 outfit or whatever, spending $300 on town drinking. Like, and it's just such a, it's just so important that perspective shift from that spending to investing, if you genuinely and seriously want to make your business and your brand work. And I think as well, it kind of separates the people that are really, really passionate and committed to doing it, because it's kind of a no-brainer. Like, I was talking with my girlfriend yesterday, and we were talking about, she's like, I've like missed family weddings to like go to like, business development weekends, because sometimes, like that's how committed you need to be. Obviously that's a spectrum, but it's like when you want it to cut through, you have to be willing to kind of do those things, and a lot of time that involves spending. But I love that hack of looking at for the Instagram followers, because so many people now with Instagram and social media being so big are semi-professional photographers with that stuff, and that's a great way of cutting, being smart about where you are spending and ensuring you're spending on the right things. That's awesome. So how do we online, and again, obviously with photography, with social media, even before you have a website, those amazing photos are going to be where you can really leverage yourself in the online space. So what do we need to know, what do businesses need to know about building a brand online?
So important to stand out, and I often say rise above the noise. There's so much noise online, and I think noise, the common thread among all sources of noise goes back to people being focused on them, me. And I think when people really put value first, that's based on research, and it's based on what you bring to the table that's different. Those are the key ingredients. And I think if you really put time, effort, thought, and research into what can I do that's different, how can I, like every good business does, satisfy a need in the marketplace, I think it comes naturally. But it's not easy. And sometimes your brand isn't going to develop overnight. I think back, and I have to remind myself to think back to being in that place of being unsure of what my brand is. I mean, my brand is your brand. My brand is helping people craft their first impression.
Yeah.
And that didn't come overnight. And there were a lot of times in the early days when I was convincing people fresh out of the gate that I was qualified to help them. And by no means do I think that have I arrived. I mean, there are much fancier people than me that do this for a living, that got their start, years earlier, or that have put more money behind their brands or have more powerful friends. It's also putting ego aside to know, no, I haven't arrived. I'm maybe halfway in the journey somewhere, but more hustle is required to get to that next level. So I think really the answer to the question is the work that goes into making sure that what you're creating is something people care about. Look at every successful business, product, or service, and it's always, the common thread is that you've always built a business on something others need. Not wants. And it's crazy how we define our own needs, because people, when they go to buy a luxury watch, or they go to buy a designer purse, that's not a want. That's a need in their mind. They've convinced themselves that is a need. That is something they need. People don't spend money on wants. Wants are things that we dream about. We only swipe a credit card when it's a need. This is something a need for my life. And that, we can cast all kinds of judgment on what those needs are. But at the end of the day, people spend money on needs, not wants. And so I think about how your business satisfies a need. I never say how it satisfies a want, because a want still means you're going to have to spend on advertising. It means your consumer's going to think twice before paying. Do I really have enough money for this right now? Like, is this really a priority? You need to be priority number one. And so I've been lucky in the way that I position. No, I'm taking that back. Luck is only part of it. No, but I've done the research over the years, and I've learned from many mistakes made. And thought after. I mean, in the moment, those mistakes are not fun, right? You're like, this client I've taken on is a nightmare, or I've lost a lot of money on this, whatever investment. You're never happy in the moment, but you look back on those moments, and that defines your decisions moving forward, so be grateful for it. But I've not been lucky. I've had luck to have the right connections that have led to really incredible career moves and decisions and evolutions, but I've put the research in, and that's why I speak so passionately about this, is when you position yourself in the market to satisfy a need, you won't have to spend money on advertising. You won't have to constantly be convincing people of the value. It's going to be inherent if there's a need for what you offer.
Cool. You said some things there that I really love. So firstly, about being lucky. I love that you reframed that, because working hard and being passionate and showing up for the work, often people will call you lucky, and I know that that's just not the case. So I loved that. And also about being willing to play the long game with your business, like you said, you're somewhere in your journey, but there's so much longer to go. And I think that people can sometimes get stuck in that transactional approach when they're building their business. So I loved that. And so I would love if you could touch a little bit on, can we or should we, or the must do's or no's about rebranding? Like, is that something we should be doing, or is that something we should stay away from?
Yeah. It's so interesting, because if we stop for a second and think about ourselves in real life, I mean, for fun, go onto Facebook and look at your first profile photo. If you want to understand the power of human evolution. We all evolve as humans, whether we like it or not. Some of the good evolutions are we become more mindful, we invest in ourselves, and maybe we become more fit. But then there's other people who become fat, right? Welcome to human evolution, for good and for bad. And so you have to understand that you are evolving as a human, for good and for bad, right? That evolution should happen online, for good or for bad. So for example, I liken brand building to dating. If we meet online, let's say we meet on Tinder, okay? I'm married to a man, so it probably wouldn't happen, but let's just be hypothetical and have some fun. Let's say we meet on Tinder. You've crafted a first impression. You have. You filled out that profile. You've given me a few photos to swipe. You've whatever else, any kind of dating platform, you're defining, you're crafting that first impression. If when I meet you, that first impression is not consistent with what you've created, then that is never a positive experience. Even if you look better, you present yourself better in real life than I thought, I'd go, oh, actually, she's really great. Then I'm still second guessing, why wasn't it great when I first consumed you, right? That, if there's a difference, a lack of consistency between in-person and online, it's never a good thing. So that's really the work that I'm super focused on doing, is how do we achieve consistency between the in-person experience and online? That is the key, so that it works for you. If we meet in real life and I continue to stay engaged with you and consume you online, that is based on that first human experience we have. One of the best compliments for me is when people read my book and say, it sounds like you wrote it, right? It sounds just like you. And I'm like, yes. That is saying, I take that more as a compliment than if someone says they enjoyed the book. Like, I obsess over making sure my voice, every single tweet, every single post, every single word I write in a book or a blog post or a podcast, everything I want you to be able to cover up the name of who posted that and know that it's from me, right? That is what I'm hyper-focused on, and that's really the work that I'm doing with clients. I'm so passionate about that, not only for myself, but for the brands that I build. The more involved I am with building a brand, the more invested I am in the fact that it's successful, right? So I focus on how do I achieve that consistency. I obsess over it, and I think that's obviously why I do what I do.
Yes, it's like palpable. I love it. So talk to us about who you work with. Like, do you specialize in working with a specific kind of person or a specific kind of industry?
I work with people in a lot of different industries. The odd time I'll get a prospective client that will email me and say, Phil, do you specialize in... Fill in the industry that I don't specialize in. Hospitality, luxury brands. No, I don't. You do. And my job is to craft the first impression and make sure the average user pays attention to you in 3 seconds or less. So no, I don't specialize in anything. In fact, I'm better at my job because I don't specialize. You're the specialist. You're the expert, not me. Right? And so by doing and working in a lot of different industries, it makes me better at my job. Back to that short attention span, like it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I figure out, okay, how do we make people care about what it is you're doing? So I work with, I feel like I've worked in almost every industry by now. Some of the sexier ones to name drop, I've worked on TV shows. I've worked on shows here in New Zealand, in fact. I've worked, with celebrities, politicians. I've worked with Nobel Peace Prize winners. I've worked with wonderful people that are just starting a business. To me, that's just as exciting as someone who's rich and famous, right? I work with good people. On my website, I say that I have a no diva policy, and I mean it. I mean it. I'm fortunate to be in the position now where I don't take on every client because they want to, pay me. I'm kind of like, no, I actually don't really like you. You're not a good person in my books, and so I'm not going to waste time, your time and my time, on trying to make something work that's not going to work. It's like a square in a circle. It's like, no, we have to be on the same page. I don't take orders. I don't work at a restaurant. I don't take orders. I work collaboratively with you. This is a team effort. You bring your perspective. I'm pretty objective in the whole thing. I figure out what makes you great. You usually agree, or we workshop that and we put that out into the world. It's a team effort. So the best projects are clients that trust me from the very beginning. They can be detail oriented. They can, we all have our quirks, but I work with good people, no ego, people that trust, jewelry, professional. I'm with lawyers, doctors, people on TV. I've worked with marine biologists. I've worked with, award-winning filmmakers. I've worked in so many cool different... I branded the first food truck on the Gold Coast of Australia and flew over. All the money I made on the project I spent on travel to fly there to be there for it. I have a good job. I have the best job in the world. The fact that I get to do this for a living is pretty awesome.
Amazing. So Phil, thank you so much for being here. I could literally talk about this topic and just like get into your head and get all of these nuggets for days. But where can we go and find you? Where do you hang out online? How can people get in touch with you?
I hang out where short attention spans are best suited, which is 140 characters or less. I love Twitter, and I think Twitter is still very relevant and a very important business tool if you want to build a targeted audience for free. So Twitter is a great spot to find me at Phil Pallen. My website kind of summarizes everything that I'm doing. I have Phil Pallen Collective, which is my collective of creatives. We help people position, build, and promote their brands. I also have Phil Pallen Academy, which is a more DIY self-starter resource. Why valet when you can self-park? That's my community for people who are specifically building their own brands and need that kind of help along the way. I've got a podcast where I produce new episodes every Friday, interviews with people I find fascinating in the world of entertainment, startups, business. And yeah, those are the places probably where I hang out the most.
Amazing. You're so fun.
Of course, this is going to look great.